it's an interesting one. I was having a discussion earlier before I did this video about the differences in clubs fitting a manager or a manager fitting clubs. Whereas I feel like with Poch fitted the club. He was exactly the manager that Tottenham needed at that time. And almost he fitted the club, but then the club and he kind of merged into this singular philosophy, which was very good and it improved Tottenham hugely, but obviously it hit a ceiling. With Conte, I don't think he's coming into the club and can fit Tottenham. He's not that kind of guy. And I feel like kind of Mourinho was the same. I think you have to turn the club into the manager almost in a way in their image. And I think that's the key with Conte is that Tottenham will have to change what they do. You look at the squad yesterday and you see a lot of young and inexperienced players. And I've said this before, but I think this has to be a summer where you look at some older heads that come in because there's got to be more people who in these scenarios know what it takes to win and they know how to impact a game. They know how to be clever in certain situations. They know, Conte came out with a quote pre-match about, I'm starting to feel that this team is learning that they is starting to hate to lose. You should always hate to lose. I was writing that. You just kind of feel like, oh, duh. Of course they need to not. Who likes losing? Who accepts losing? I mean, his point was that he expects that real winners go home and they are angry after a defeat. He's not wrong. I do think we've seen that at Tottenham. I don't think there's this burning anger when they lose matches and there's almost been an acceptance of what's happening. And I do agree with that, but that should not be the way. That should not be the way at all. And that's why I think you bring in players who just despise losing, absolutely will not countenance the even thought of it. Like I say, I'm sorry to keep harkening back to it, but having watched the Juventus All or Nothing documentary, it's such a world away from the Tottenham one. I'd say Tottenham one was probably more entertaining because it's Tottenham. There's always something daft happening. But in terms of the Juventus one, just watching Chiellini, Buffon and Bonucci teaching these young players coming in like Chiesa and Kulusevski and Weston McKennie as well, teaching them like what it means to be a Juventus player, what it means to, we don't lose. At this point, up to that season under Pirlo, Juventus had won like the last 9 league titles? They didn't do losing. And just that mentality, you just don't have that at Tottenham. It's such a different mentality. And I just wonder, are we at the point now, and this summer will maybe prove it, do you have to change what Tottenham Hotspur is? Do you have to fit Antonio Conte rather than Antonio Conte try to squeeze his kind of square peg into the round hole that is Tottenham Hotspur, as it were? Because he knows he needs a better squad. He does. He was asked about, there was quite a frank question, it was a good question, was your system needs good wing backs. Essentially, are you going to go and get them? Because implying that, as was rightly on the evidence of yesterday, Sessegnon and Emerson were not up to the job yesterday. And he said, now I repeat, it's not fair to speak about the situation that we can improve or not. I think I'm very happy to have this group of players. I'm trying to exploit every single player and improve every single player. I think also for this reason today, with 5 games to play, we're talking about Tottenham in the race for the Champions League places. Don't forget in November the big trouble Tottenham were in. Now to stay with 5 games, to go to the possibility to stay in this race means the players improved a lot and we're doing a great job. We have to know in this last month, maybe if we give 120%, maybe it's not enough. We have to try to increase and go 150% to try to reach this target. He's not denying. He knows he needs better wing-backs because he is. Otherwise, you say in that scenario, no, they're good enough for this job. I can improve them. He didn't. He chose not to. He was polite about it, but he chose not to. And it does. I am fascinated by the whole aspect of what this summer will be, because last summer was an utter joke, a farce of a summer. It was. I just don't want this summer to be. I want it to be an exciting summer. Obviously, top 4 would put a massive kind of gloss on it to go and do that. But, I mean, let's see what happens with these games to come, because what I would say is these 2 matches have very much followed a pattern because of the opponents. I do think that's the case. Whereas the next 3 games, albeit more difficult on paper, Leicester, Liverpool and Arsenal, they are three teams that will not sit back, and they will give Tottenham the space that suits Tottenham to attack. I'm not saying they're going to win everyone, but what I'm going to say is that I'd be very surprised if in the next three games Tottenham don't have a shot on target again. I think these will be games where Tottenham will be able to open up and play the football that they properly play, and I think perhaps Conte knows that, because I can't see. I mean, Leicester obviously got the European games either side. I'd be stunned if they come there just to sit back and try and hit Spurs on the break. I would be surprised if that's all they do. But even if they do try to hit them on the break, that in turn will leave spaces behind. And obviously Liverpool are never at Anfield going to do that. And Arsenal and North London Derby are not going to sit back, I don't think, and do that. I just don't think they've got that in them either. So, yeah, of course I'd written that down. Leicester and Liverpool. Spurs scored 5 times against the two of them in the last couple of meetings under Conte. So they are teams that hopefully there will be chances. The key will be is remaining tight at the back. I think you make Spurs have a 3-5-2 yesterday and put Eriksen in the midfield 3. Spurs win that game. I genuinely believe that. Especially as his set piece was really dangerous. Like I say, they hit the post, hit the woodwork twice. And it's not least that, but he was pulling the strings. He was probably one of the best, if not the best player on the pitch yesterday. He would fit in there. He would fit in there like a glove in Conte's 3-5-2, as he did with Inter Milan. It's no coincidence that after about a year at Inter Milan, it just clicked for Eriksen, and he realised exactly his place in the team and what Conte wanted from him, and he became a regular pretty much every game in that midfield 3. He played in the middle, the centre of a midfield 3 as like a kind of a quarterback role for Conte, and they won Serie A together. For Brentford, I think he was mostly on the left. He was kind of dotting around a bit. It was almost like a little bit of a free roll in there, but he was mostly on the left. And he would bring so much to Tottenham. And, I know Spurs have spoken, have had discussions about bringing him in as a free agent, as in amongst themselves. I think there's going to be a queue of competition for him. I don't think he left Spurs, from what I understand, on the best of terms with the hierarchy at the club. But he does love the club, and that was very clear in the way he was yesterday with everyone. And he wants to stay in London, from what I understand, as well, with his family. And, it's quite funny that Conte, way back when he just signed for Brentford, was very clear, no subtlety about it whatsoever, that he wanted to bring in Eriksen. He would be very happy to bring in Eriksen maybe this summer. But actually, as we've had this week's come along and he's been facing Eriksen, he's got a bit more coy. And he's swerved the question pre-match. There was a couple of times it was asked him, he swerved it, very manoeuvred around the subject. The ice cream van again. I swear. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I swear he waits until I do a video. And then he flies by like a rocket. So ice lollies are called a rocket, aren't they? Yeah. Who was it? Christian Eriksen. I do think, especially if Spurs make top 4, I think they become quite an attractive proposition for Eriksen. And I do think it makes sense. Of course it does. A free agent of his quality, 30 years old, he's become back a winner, having won Serie A, and would have that hunger of, like I say, a man that's had this second chance as well. I think would be a very different Eriksen to the one that left Tottenham. And, I know some people are still miffed at the way he went and the way his performances went in the last year. But, yeah, I do think it would be a good deal. And, yeah, Conte was asked again whether he would have fitted nicely into that midfield.